All right, we are now live. We should be getting attendees coming into our audience. Folks will be trickling in as we get started here, but just because we have a packed agenda today, we have a lot of exciting things we want to talk about. I'm going to go ahead and launch us. So welcome, everyone. My name is Mark Hauk, and I'm a program officer at the Stoneleigh Foundation, as well as a proud supporter of the team joining me today at Day One, Not Day Two. Before I turn the reins over to them so that you can learn more about the exciting work that they are doing, please know that we will have time at the end of today for audience questions. Make sure we see your question. Please submit it at any time through the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. We do have the chat going today as well, but it's easy for questions to get lost there. So please make sure that you submit through our Q&A. We also ask that you identify yourself using your name and organization when you submit a question so that the team here knows who they're responding to when they answer it. Now, I'd like to turn things over to Rachel K. Godfrey, today's moderator. Rachel, please take it away.
Hello, everybody. Great to see you all. Thank you for being here. I'm going to go ahead and get us set up on the screen. All right. And we're going to kick it off with a check-in question for folks. So as everyone is trickling in, getting settled, grabbing water, grabbing snacks, I'm just going to read a quote and then give folks an opportunity to share in the chat. So one of my favorite authors, Octavia E. Butler, once said, "There's no single answer that will solve all of our future problems. There's no magic bullet. Instead, there are thousands of answers, at least. You can be one of them if you choose to be." So our check-in question for today is, what's one thing you will do today to help shape a better tomorrow? You can go ahead and drop it in the chat. All right, I'm seeing give grace, rest, show up, meet new people and learn about their stories, rest. Yes, lots of resting needs to be done, everybody. Okay. Let me go ahead and connect and build true relationships with my neighbors. These are great answers. Can I get a thumbs up from my fellow participants? All right. Good afternoon, everyone. First, I want to express sincere thanks to the Stoneleigh Foundation, not just for your support, but for your trust in young leadership and your commitment to creating a space where real power can be shared and grown. And thank you to all attendees for being here. Your presence speaks to your belief in what's possible when we center young people in this work. Welcome to Reimagining Leadership, Reclaiming Narratives, and Revitalizing Philadelphia. For far too long, leadership has been narrowly defined. We were told leaders must be politicians, corporate executives, or holders of advanced degrees. But the real-world leaders of today and tomorrow look like artists. They look like community organizers. They look like people who have survived systems designed to marginalize them. They carry stories, insight, and resilience. They lead not in theory, but in practice through lived experience. But before we can even reimagine leadership, we have to confront the challenge. Harmful narratives about young Black and Brown people continue to dominate our institutions, policies, and media. These narratives paint young people as problems to be fixed, rather than as visionaries to be followed. They erase complexity, flatten identity, and justify systems of punishment and neglect. When young people are only ever framed through the lens of deficiency or danger, their ideas, talents, and leadership are systematically dismissed. These stories are not just inaccurate, they are dangerous. That's why changing the narrative isn't a side effort, it is the work. When we shift the story, we shift the system. At Day One, Not Day Two, we believe leadership begins with lived experience, not titles. We equip young Black and Brown people, many of whom our systems impacted, to become the next generation of storytellers, leaders who organize and activate the people through music, journalism, and legal advocacy. Our programs are paid, rooted in healing, and designed to cultivate not only technical skills, but also emotional depth, creative expression, and a strong sense of self-determination. We don't just teach songwriting, media, or advocacy. We help young people reclaim their own narratives, define their own identities, and use storytelling as a tool to challenge systems and imagine new ones. We understand this work to be an integral piece of a cultural shift, one that moves from control to collaboration and from extraction to investment. We are transforming how leadership is recognized. We're building narrative power where it has historically been erased. And we're not waiting for permission from anyone to do it. We're doing it from day one. As we spotlight this work today, I invite you not just to observe, but to listen, to learn, and to think about how your leadership can make space for theirs. With that, I'd love to introduce our leaders. Andre Sims is an artist, organizer, and the founder of DayOneNotDayTwo, a nonprofit dedicated to ending youth incarceration through creative resistance and participatory defense. With a background in youth organizing, he has worked with groups like Juvenile Law Center, Zealous, and New Deal for Youth, among others. A former lead organizer for the Youth Art and Self-Empowerment Project, Andre brings lived experience to his work, having served 8 years in an adult prison starting at age 17. His story has been featured on PBS, WHYY, and C-SPAN, and in 2022, he received the Penn Medicine Community Hero Award. That same year, he created a nationally recognized training on ethical youth advocacy for the National Legal Aid and Defender Association Conference. Incite Morris is a painter, poet, and restorative justice practitioner with Delaware County's first youth participatory defense hub. A powerful storyteller, Incite uses art and poetry to unpack the complexities of growing up in the Philadelphia foster care system. Her work centers the transformative power of youth voices, drawing from her own experience with childhood adversity to lead healing-centered workshops for court-involved young people. Through her dual lens as an artist and justice advocate, Incite helps redefine what support, safety, and accountability can look like in our communities. Rahsaan Stanback is a youth organizer at DayOneNotDayTwo and a core member of the org's Participatory Defense Hub, where young people impacted by the criminal legal system organize to shift the balance of power inside courtrooms and beyond. He is committed to helping other young people explore their core values and creating generational power. In observing the role of music and the industry in pinning the younger generation against one another, he sees it as his duty to make positivity and initiative cool again. As a member of the Ascension Music Program, Rahsaan began using music and storytelling to challenge harmful narratives around gun violence, youth poverty, and mass incarceration. Through both advocacy and artistry, Rahsaan uplifts youth voices and drives forward a vision of community care and systemic change. And then, last but not least, Westley Bruce, a youth organizer in training and a rising leader at the org's Participatory Defense Hub, where he first joined as a participant navigating the court system. After successfully completing the hub, Westley became an advocate for others, using his story to support young people facing similar challenges. Outside of organizing, he is a tradesman and young entrepreneur, currently studying carpentry, HVAC, and electrical work in school. He's also preparing to launch his own house painting business, focused on restoring and beautifying homes for loved ones and neighbors in his community. Wesley's work bridges survival, self-determination, and service. And then, want to give everyone a quick agenda for the day so you know where we're at. Please make sure you are grabbing water, grabbing snacks, stretching as you need to. You know, we're going to be here for a bit. Things will go quickly, but still take care of yourself. We're going to do a quick overview of what we'll be talking about today. We'll show you a clip from the Safer Sorry documentary that Andre will introduce. We'll talk about programs and trainings, and then do another clip for you all, and then we'll have time for a Q&A, and then we'll close things out. So we'll talk about our programs. Ascension, where youth create socially responsible music and poetry to address issues like gun violence, systemic injustice, and inequality, which culminates in a community concert. We'll talk about Community AF, which empowers North Philadelphia youth to challenge media portrayals and share their stories through media literacy, storytelling, and advocacy. We'll talk about the Participatory Defense Hub, where we provide legal advocacy, case assistance, and emotional support to justice-involved youth and their families, focusing on reducing system involvement. And then we'll talk about Transforming Justice, which is a two-part program encompassing restorative justice diversion and restorative-based reentry. From there, we'll talk about our trainings, restorative justice, which we teach folks how to empower and transform harm through healing, accountability, and the power of dialogue. Emotional intelligence, which emphasizes personal accountability, restorative practices, and understandings of collective needs in order to cultivate a more synergetic community. And then we'll talk about authentic youth engagement, where we equip teams with the skills and mindsets to move beyond performative youth inclusion toward meaningful power-sharing engagement. And then I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Andre.
Walk past a block. It's been no longer than 10 seconds since we walked past. We hear all these gunshots and a white car fly down the street. So we walk back. Two people sitting there, bullets in their chest, bleeding everywhere. Well, I feel like it was just crazy because I was just there 10 seconds ago.
Craziest thing I saw in Philly was somebody getting killed right in front of my face. Over some bullshit. I'm gonna keep it a being. Like, I ain't never thought I'd see some shit like that ever in my life, like, ever.
One of the craziest moments that I seen just coming up was seeing my homie get killed in front of me. That was probably one of the most surreal and, life-changing moments that I probably ever experienced.
My name is Kia. I was born and raised in Southwest Philadelphia. I'm 18.
Justin Burton. Age is 23. From North Philadelphia.
I'm Thomas. I'm 16. I'm from Albany.
I'm Joanna Williams, and I'm Senior Director of Research at Search Institute. Search Institute is a nonprofit applied research organization. We partner and collaborate with youth-serving organizations. At the core of what we do is really about promoting positive youth development.
A lot of that beef, a lot of the roots, it was stemmed from money. It was stemmed from, just certain types of scenarios that went down, whether it was a retaliation for one thing over another, but it would really just be money. A lot of the times it was just money.
For real, most of this beef in the city right now is childish.
I feel like the cause of most street beef today would be social media. Before it was guns, it would be rumbling. But you would rumble and you would be cool after that. You and the person to split ways, stop talking to each other, whatever the case may be. Now as though that it's social media, you feel me, person get knocked out on camera, they got that person got that video that did that for the rest of their life. And they just taunting and then wind up fighting again until the person that keep losing ain't gonna want to fight no more.
I lost about 4 friends to gun violence.
I lost about 4 to 5 friends due to gun violence.
I've lost upwards of 8 people to gun violence.
My name is Dwayne Washington from West Philadelphia. Came home July 25th after doing 10 years. 2 armed robberies cost me 13 years of my life under DOC supervision. So, unfortunately, I was on both sides of the impacts of gun violence.
I was upstate during my graduation because my fascination was with guns. I mean, you see them on every station. To my imagination, they look fun.
Let's talk about poverty. Let's talk about accessibility to guns. Let's talk about gun policies, like how guns are so readily available. Let's talk about creating opportunities for young people to have experiences and strong relationships and connections to opportunities and resources and education.
Philadelphia's schools are starved of resources. Over half of the city's households are single-parent homes, and nearly half of adults report struggling with mental health in the past year. Gun violence here is not the root problem. It's a symptom of a much deeper wound, one that has haunted Black communities for generations. To truly address gun violence, we must confront the trauma fueling it. The trauma of poverty, of fractured families, of inherited pain that traces back to enslaved ancestors who were never given the chance to heal from centuries of suffering. Today's youth, who have endured a pandemic during their most vulnerable years, who navigate an unforgiving social media landscape, who are relentlessly demonized by mainstream narratives, carry more than guns. They carry the weight of a history left unhealed.
Right. Thank you. So now we're going to hop into talking about programs. I'm going to kick it off talking about the Ascension Music Program. So in April 2024, I reached out to Andre about participating in a project that I was working on, a documentary on how music media workers could more authentically spotlight Black and Brown artists in their work. We had connected earlier that year at Philadelphia Community Access Media, or PhillyCam, both working on community media projects that emphasize the role of musicians in building healthier, more connected communities. Not long after, Andre told me about Ascension, a program run by his organization, DayOneNotDayTwo. They were launching a new cohort, and he invited me to come check it out and maybe even incorporate it into my documentary. What I didn't know was that my visit would lead me to signing up to be a member of our 5-person cohort, the 3rd cohort overall. I also didn't know that Ascension would become the most transformative experience of my 20s. What Andre didn't know at the time was that I was early on in a healing journey, working through the pain and trauma of watching a loved one battle and eventually pass from substance abuse. I was carrying a lot: grief, self-blame, anger, and didn't fully realize how much of that was still stuck in my body and spirit. Ascension gave me the space to feel it, to move through it, and to make meaning from it. As a musician, writer, community member, and a leader, I found myself changed. There's a video somewhere of me nearly in tears talking about how Ascension taught me to never grow comfortable with what is, when I've already imagined what could be. The idea applied to my art, to my work, my relationships, and how I show up in the world. Ascension reminded me that we can speak love into the world through our creativity, and that love can cut through pain and uncertainty. We have the power to share messages, voice care, and name the kind of kindness we wish we and our loved ones had received. It also showed me the importance of authenticity in creative work, that we don't need to chase trends or try to make ourselves palatable to the mainstream. We can build powerful, meaningful art that is rooted in our realities and the futures that we imagine. We can speak to what's happening around us right now. And in doing that, we challenge the harmful narratives that have been forced onto us. Too often, people make up stories about our communities because they don't know our lives, because they don't ask, or because the systems around them have taught them to see us as problems instead of people. These narratives shape how others view us, but more dangerously, they shape how we see ourselves. When you grow up constantly seeing your identity criminalized, your story erased, your pain misunderstood, you begin to internalize it. But programs like Ascension remind us that the truth can only come from our own words, that we are the ones who get to define who we are, and that storytelling through music, poetry, and performance is not just expression, it's resistance. The Ascension program was the first initiative launched by DayOneNotDayTwo. It's a space where young people reclaim their voices and rewrite narratives that have been used to silence or criminalize them. Over the course of several weeks, artists go on a journey of writing, recording, producing, and learning, all grounded in social consciousness and emotional growth. Each cohort ends with a community concert, but these aren't just showcases, they're declarations. Artists share raw truths about systemic injustice, community violence, grief, and healing. Still, Ascension isn't just about the music or the internal emotional work. What many fail to realize is that storytelling and music can be policy change. Music has always been political, but for young people, music becomes a tool to spread new messages. It shapes what we value, what we pay attention to, what we put our money toward, and what we believe is possible. It shifts narratives. It challenges what society normalizes. It builds empathy. And in a country where laws often reflect the dominant culture's fears and assumptions, music gives us a way to challenge what's broken and imagine what could be better. In 2024, artists from the Ascension cohort performed across the country, in Las Vegas, Oakland, Chicago, DC, and right here in Philadelphia. These weren't just shows. They were platforms for young people to share their visions of a world without youth incarceration as a part of Youth Justice Action Month. Supported by the FAST Foundation, we facilitated community conversations around each performance. So what started as a potential documentary interview turned into something far deeper for me. Ascension didn't just amplify my voice, it helped me find a voice I didn't realize I had lost. It reminded me that art is a vessel for truth, a space for healing, and a blueprint for the world we deserve. Through Ascension, the young artists aren't just dreaming, they're world building. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Reclaiming our narratives through music is just one piece of the puzzle, because the stories we tell and how we choose to tell them create the world we live in. And that's exactly where Andre will take us next, into the power of narrative through the lens of journalism.
Thank you for sharing that, Rachel. Yeah, similarly to the harmful narratives that Rachel talked about that are circulating through music on the mainstream level, we've also been absorbing a consistent dose of desensitization, fear, and violence through mainstream media. And it's no secret that media outlets want us to believe that we aren't safe in our own communities. They depict black and brown neighborhoods as war zones. They say that we're criminals. They call the residents, suspects, persons of interest. The impact of this is probably even more detrimental than the supposed crimes that they cover, right? Just think about it. If you were told repeatedly that your community was unsafe and your neighbors were criminals, wouldn't you be more likely to carry a gun? That is why we went into that documentary clip that we showed. We asked young people, what is it like living in Philly? What makes you want to carry a gun? Because we want to demonize youth, we want to criminalize youth, but nobody's asking the question of why do you feel unsafe? I know for me, I would want to carry a gun. In fact, I did by the age of 17, as Rachel kind of alluded to. I found myself serving 8 year sentence in an adult prison. While my classmates was getting ready to go to prom, I was getting ready to go upstate. When my peers were graduating high school, I was gradually deteriorating in solitary confinement. And this is at an age where I should have been thinking about college, but instead I'm thinking whether or not I'm ever going to see my family again. And though I'll sit here and be the first to tell you that, I've committed harm in my life, I've inflicted pain and suffering on, people that I wish I could take back. I can't deny the fact that at one point in time, I allowed myself to subscribe to a story that was not mine. I became a statistic. The statistics that they were feeding me, I became that. I allowed myself to lose hope. And by the age of 16, I literally would tell people, I don't see myself making it to 21. Just sit with that as a teenager, because that's what everything pointed to. That's what all the signs of my community told me. So I called myself accepting my fate. I called myself reclaiming my power by embracing the inevitable, dead or in jail. The cliche all over the news, dead or in jail. All of my friends, dead or in jail. It felt like all of my options were dead or in jail. At least that's what I believed. And the truth is that perception is reality. Little did I know I was embodying a self-fulfilling prophecy, and that created exactly where I ended up. So let's fast forward. 2023, I'm 26. I've been home for a couple years. We just founded the organization, and I found myself at a community meeting in North Philadelphia organized by Temple University. There was a professor by the name of Andrea Winslow. She wanted to help develop media accountability structures, right, to transform how communities, specifically communities of color in North Philadelphia, were covered. And though the intentions were pure, the impact was a little more harmful than anything else. We found that the residents that showed up to the meeting, our community, we've had a burning distrust for mainstream media to the point where there was no interest, there was zero interest at all in helping media platforms tell better stories. So tensions rose as people recounted traumatic experience about the news, whether it be about misidentifying them or extracting information, never follow up. Like people are recounting these traumatic experiences with the media. One person talked about mistaken identity, how they were, claimed to have been involved in a shooting that, took somebody's life, and that wasn't true.
but that was, posted everywhere on the front pages of everything. Now this person has to live in the community where everybody is looking at them like this. And so as you would expect, during this, while the community is, going through all of these, experience, recounting all of these traumatic experiences, talking turned into yelling, yelling turned into crying, and before we knew it, the meeting was over, and it really felt like no progress was made. And so I pulled the professor to the side afterwards, and I wanted to figure out, can we find a way to honor what the community raised in a way that's not extractive but mutually beneficial, right? How can we accept where they're at and really pour into them, as opposed to extracting. So we ended up piloting a solutions journalism fellowship where we paid 6 North Philadelphia residents to train in solutions journalism for a semester along 12 Temple students. We literally paid North Philly residents to go to college essentially to learn how to tell their own stories, to equip them with the tools to tell their own stories. And the plan was for us to reclaim our own narratives. We called that program Community AF, or the Community Apprentice Fellowship. The program has since evolved and launched the community-owned media platform. We call it the Neighbors News Network, where the goal is to share stories that really reflect the future of what we're working towards and that celebrate community and highlight not the social issues that plague us, but our responses to them. There's so many beautiful things happening in Philly that we just overlook, that don't get talked about enough because we're busy being used as clickbait. We're busy focusing on the headlines. We're busy reading the obituaries. And it's time that Philadelphians own their own stories. Since the launch of Community AF and the Neighbors News Network, we've published that documentary that you just seen a clip of, Safe or Sorry, that I told you explores why young people feel the need to carry guns. We've recently developed and launched a code of ethics alongside other community organizations that provide an in-depth and comprehensive approach to reporting on public safety and crime for all newsrooms. And we started sharing community profiles on a podcast called Street Therapy, which centers interviews designed to challenge paradigms and conventional perspectives that impact North Philadelphia residents. We plan to also host community newsrooms where there'll be writing workshops and opportunities for the people to come together to share the story ideas they want to work on, and really define what they deem as newsworthy. Because right now it's defined for us. And we're also in the process of growing our network to include more solutions journalism. We want to build an interactive resource map and eventually even develop SMS-based infrastructure to share information, because it's not only important that we own our media, but we have to make it accessible, which is why we must continue to support these type of initiatives, super hyper local media outlets, especially during a time where we're experiencing so much misinformation. Um, so I'll pass it back to Sino to host to take us to the next program.
Yes, thank you, Andre. And as Andre shared, the most powerful and honest narratives come forward when we center the voices of those who are directly impacted. And lived experience not only brings truth to light, but also shapes the way that we show up in this work. So now San will walk us through how our organization puts this principle into practice by supporting young people and families as they navigate the criminal legal system firsthand.
What's going on, everyone? I think I already been introduced. I'm San. I'm an organizer at DayOneNotDayTwo. I guess I'll just get right into it. The narratives we see in media and music aren't the only ones shaping us. Courtroom narratives are changing lives every day. It's up to us, the people, to decide how we see the full, holistic picture of any human being. As a young man navigating through life's trials and tribulations, I found myself arrested at 22, facing serious time, 11 to 23 months upstate. You won't make it, as my grandma would say. Not having no one to talk to, being mentally unstable, ready to lose it all in the blink of a second, just not being able to express or control my feelings. I was going back and forth to court, battling not only for my freedom, but also for my sanity and personal growth on a daily basis. I fought challenges that could have determined my future, but participatory defense kept my mind fed with opportunity and dignity.
In the midst of this storm, I was blessed with an opportunity that changed everything. I was connected with Day One, Not Day Two, a youth-led movement that also introduced me into participatory defense, a hub led by youth for youth. I was able to open up different chapters of myself. I didn't know I was able to tap in with myself in every area. Delco Youth Hub helps young people facing the criminal legal system get the best outcome while at the same time teaching systems educations for people to understand the law and how the criminal legal system works. Providing mitigation packets and social bios for the system to have a clear perspective on you and not just list your charges. Providing core support and different resources. This community gave me the support and tools to fight for the best possible outcome in my case. More than that, it opened my mind, kept me grounded, and taught me to never give up, whether it meant healing, growing, or learning. Through this journey, I learned my case inside out. That gave me a clearer understanding of how to approach not just my case, but my life with a more proactive mindset. It wasn't just about knowing my rights. It was about educating myself deeply enough to understand them, knowing what I was up against, what I had to lose, and how I had to move. It was a time I felt lost and confused, and I was able to be there for those who felt the same way. Participatory defense played a huge role in this transformation and empowered me to shift the narrative, not just for myself, but for others. I've then since helped others with their cases. I've stood beside them as a mentor, a leader, and a brother in struggle. In participatory defense, we aim to get the best possible outcome in cases and set this tone on a restorative turn for people to grow through power building and understand how everybody's core values can align. If you had $45 million to invest in your community, how would you spend it? The question I often ask, because that's what Delco is willing to invest into a new detention center. Delco Youth was able to prevent that process and allow others alternatives for young people to really be rehabilitated and get the care and guidance that they actually needed and not just be labeled as a criminal. Looking back, I remember how lost and unaware I was. Now, I recognize how embracing vulnerability with my peers and comrades allows me to grow in ways I could never imagine. I've been able to build unity within communities, leaving a lasting impact on families and becoming a vessel for change and growth. This is what participatory defense is all about: changing lives, shifting narratives, and building leaders from the ground up. And I just love the experience. That's all I can really say, but I'll pass it back to Rachel.
Yeah. Thank you, Son. It is so powerful to hear you talk about the power of community organizing by building power within your own community alongside your people. And it's also powerful to hear you reflect on how systems education and narrative power building have shaped your journey. And also the lives of young people and families who turn to the hub during these deeply vulnerable moments. And your story is really a clear reminder that the criminal legal system isn't concerned with the whole of a person and only the narrative that is constructed around their charge. So, Incite will now share how we work to meet these same kinds of challenges with a holistic, future-focused approach, one that centers healing, accountability, and the belief that punishment isn't the only, nor is it the best, response to harm in our communities.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Incite Morris, and I am a youth organizer and restorative practitioner. I am deeply grateful to be here today. I'm going to be talking about transformative justice today, but before I go into that, I'd like to start with a little about how I got introduced to this work and why it's important to me. From the ages of 9 to 18, I was in and out of behavioral institutions in the DHS and foster care system. I was struggling with mental health, and there were moments when I needed holistic treatment and restoration. Instead, I was thrown back into the very systems that harmed me. I was treated like an experiment, and it was in those moments I began to understand the harsh reality of what America does to her Black and brown youth. I survived experiences no child should have faced: being wrongfully diagnosed, neglected, experimented on, and placed in detention centers, group homes, and jails on a path that was leading me to self-destruct. I was at my breaking point when I decided to sign myself out of the welfare system. At the time, I didn't have a place to stay. I didn't have steady employment. I didn't even really have a plan yet, but it was one of the happiest days of my life. Shortly after, I began working for different organizations in the city. I was a music teacher at a shelter that I used to stay at, and I was also doing organizing work, but I always felt like something was missing. Through DayOneNotDayTwo, I was introduced to restorative justice, and something just clicked for me. I was introduced to restorative justice practices, and I ignited with a burning passion. After training to become a restorative practitioner, I began hosting circles in my community and realized how life-changing it was. For those who don't know, restorative justice is about repairing relationships and healing harm. Now I'm going to talk to you about transformative justice, which is about addressing the root causes and underlying conditions that cause the harm. It's rooted in self-accountability and long-term support. Our restorative justice programs target youth and young adults who caused harm or who have been harmed. Through one of our mentoring sessions, emotional intelligence workshops, and community circles, we are working to rebuild relationships and redefine what justice looks like. At the center of this work is the belief that justice can be both transformational and survival-centered. This isn't just about returning to the community. It's about coming back stronger, more connected, and ready to lead the fight for collective liberation. I've seen firsthand how restorative justice has sometimes been taught in co-opt or treated like a quick fix. But what we do here is different. We've studied what worked, we lived it, we led it. We created a model that comes from lived experience, not theory. The young people that come in as participants end up leading their own circles. Eventually, we'll be able to reimagine as a community how we want to respond to harm in a way that truly serves us. Currently, we are working with the DA's office in Delco to offer Transforming Justice as a diversion program. Next, we'll be working with Philly's DA office to see how we can implement community-based process as a reentry resource. Thank you.
Thank you, Incite. And as Incite spoke to, and as folks before spoke to, when we talk about narrative change and emotional development and building stronger leaders, we don't speak in abstract hopes or these distant dreams. We speak from experience. We've seen firsthand the transformation that happens when young people are not only encouraged to be the leaders that they wish they had, but are given the tools, space, and support to actually become them. What follows now is a powerful reflection from West, whose story reveals just how deep the impact of incarceration can go and how crucial it is to create pathways for healing, truth-telling, and future building when someone comes home. Passing it to you, West.
About a year ago, I was in and out of the system for petty crimes, fingerprinted, processed, and released. I was in a dark place mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. That's when everything came to a head. I had people who owed me money, so I decided to try and purchase a firearm. To me, that was my Second Amendment right. But what I didn't know, because I was uneducated about the criminal legal system, was that just filing an application put my freedom at risk. Because of my juvenile record, that simple action triggered a felony gun charge. I was arrested, and at my bond hearing, the judge gave me $1 million bond, just like 8 other defendants in the courtroom that day. I never bought a gun, I never possessed one, but still, they hit me with an F1. My first week inside was a shock. I was in quarantine, locked in a freezing cell for 23 hours a day with no shower, no blankets, no medication, just pain. The food was so terrible, I smiled just seeing the apple. When I finally got to move to the block, I quickly realized I had to stop thinking with emotion and start thinking about survival. No cameras meant no protection. And giving up my food felt safer than standing up for myself. Every day was about learning what to say, when to move, and how to stay invisible
I was in pain constantly, physically and mentally. But the system didn't care. Even when my public defender came all the way to see me, it wasn't to offer real help. It was to tell me to plead guilty. That moment broke something in me. I stopped thinking about the future. I was just stuck, replaying how did I get here, wondering if this was it. About a month into my time in prison, I spoke to my mom. She told me help was on the way. 3 days later, I was out. I was home. I was grateful that I could touch grass. But anyone who's been through the system knows coming home doesn't mean you're free. While I was locked up, my mom been working nonstop to find support. It wasn't easy though. I had a county case and we lived in Philly. And so most organizations couldn't help because of that. She kept pushing until she found DayOneNotDayTwo. They was the first ones to say yes. They told her they were the best options to help me get justice and a better outcome. Soon after I got home, I was introduced to the youth hub. I didn't know what that was. I was just told to show up. I wasn't in the mood to hear anything about my situation. I just wanted to get sleep and get high. Not because I didn't care, but because I didn't want to face reality. My first experiences at the hub, I'll be honest, I was unprepared. I was unappreciative. I was transparent, but mentally checked out. I didn't know the value of what they were offering. They were walking me through court prep, helping me process what I was going through, and slowly shifting how I viewed everything. Day one, Incite and Luna wrote me characteristic letters. Incite showed up to every one of my court hearings. I even gained the confidence to stand up and speak on my own behalf, directly to the judge and the DA. I told him how I've been a productive citizen to society, how I stayed out of trouble for almost a decade, and still I ended up getting a year of probation. Even though it wasn't a fair sentence, but by then I had learned how to navigate the system and more importantly, how to move forward. Then came the restorative justice trainings. I learned how this system we live under is designed to punish, not help. I started to understand that we don't always need to involve the government to solve our problems, because honestly, and quite frankly, the government doesn't always care. They make the decisions, but we live with the damage. The organization taught me that real justice is about meeting needs, not just punishment. Think of this. If someone's stealing clothes, locking them up doesn't fix the reason they were stealing. And once they get out, they still stuck, still struggling, still causing harm, but now with more trauma. What changes that is the accessibility to resources, education, and support. Over the past year, Day One, Not Day Two, has been more than just support me. They've mentored me. They helped me grow into a leader. They didn't just tell me what to do. They walked with me. They taught me, and they challenged me. They helped me understand my emotions, taught me how to regulate my anger, and how the mind responds to trauma. They reminded me what it means to persevere through adversity. They taught me how to hold myself accountable. And now every day I wake up with purpose, and I want to make my community a better place. If I can speak to anyone right now who's been through the system, I'll remind them just to be patient with yourself. Don't be ashamed. Give yourself grace. It's okay. Understand that even if it doesn't make sense right now, it all happens for a reason. Open your mind. Allow yourself to receive feedback. Take care of your body, your mind, your spirit, and your soul. Love yourself. Surround yourself with people who reflect the same energy and mindset you want to embody. Because if you don't, you'll keep making the same mistakes. You'll keep following others. Touch grass. Ground yourself. Get in tune with who you are. You can't lead others until you learn how to lead yourself.
Thank you, Wes. Wes's story is a powerful testament to what so many directly impacted young people experience, not just inside the system, but in the emotional aftermath of coming home. I think your story and how you tell it, it underscores why the work must involve building these deep relational narrative and leadership development opportunities. And so to ground us in how we move from stories like Wes's to long-term systems change, Andre will speak to the theory of change that drives our organization's work and how we build intentional, sustained pathways toward justice, healing, and transformation. Passing it to Andre.
Thank you, Rachel, and also thank you for everybody that shared your stories. And yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy. We sit up here and take it for granted a lot of the times, but a lot of people wouldn't be able to survive the things that you all have been through, that we've all been through, let alone be able to talk about it to inspire and empower others. So I really want to just thank y'all, for sharing that. At the end of the day, our goal is really liberation. It's liberation mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and financially. We believe that freedom requires a cultural paradigm shift. That's what a lot of us talked about in different ways. It has to start from within. In order to transform relationships with our government, with the institutions that govern us, we have to transform the relationships we have with each other. We have to transform the relationships we have with ourselves. The revolution is really inside. It starts internally. With our model, we focus on investing in a new type of leader. We understand that individuals closest to the issue, most affected by the issue, they're closest to the solution. The true experts are the people with lived experiences. And not only should they be invested in, but they should be afforded the opportunity to own and control the resources, institutions, and practices that impact them the most. All of the youth leaders, the young people in leadership at our organization are required to attend regular political education trainings as well as emotional intelligence workshops, because it's imperative that we unlearn. We have to unlearn so much before we can even start to embody new teachings. So when it comes to developing young leaders, something that I think we're very good at doing is balancing high support with high expectations. I think that's what kind of makes us a little bit different. In today's society, I feel like we don't expect enough from youth. We don't expect enough from each other. We don't expect enough from ourselves, quite frankly, right? We forget that the freedom fighters of the 50s, 60s, 70s, like these were young people. Think of the Panthers, think of SNCC, think of, Black Arts Movement. They were all led by the younger generation. And we are continuing that tradition by prioritizing the leadership and ownership of youth in Black and Brown communities. The ultimate goal must be to achieve and really, really embody self-determination and self-sustainability, which is why we're also supporting the development of businesses, paid trainings, and other assets as a way to fund this mission. You know, we cannot and should not rely on the good graces of wealthy white people to help build our communities. Today, we see organizations losing funding left and right. People are getting laid off. Entire communities and initiatives are being displaced as a result of one flick of the pen. And if we haven't learned anything, is that if we have learned anything, matter of fact, is that it's time to invest in people. We have to invest in the people. So that's why we offer a variety of different trainings, workshops, and retreats. And it serves two purposes. One, it's a way of pouring into people and organizations that really want to do this work. And second, it's a way of working towards self-sustainability without depending on the temperament of, the so-called white saviors, right? We have to have us. It can't be anything about us without us. And so we have to be the helm at the helm of all of that.
And so as far as the trainings we offer, emotional intelligence training, restorative justice trainings, circle keeper workshops, narrative change trainings and workshops, and also authentic youth engagement trainings for organizations that are working with youth, interested with working with young people. We're actually also hosting authentic youth engagement training in person next month that we would love to invite everybody to, be part of, come be in community with us, come build. And it's also a way you could come support this work. So really what it comes down to is, when I think of day one and what we do, the theory of change, right? Think of your first day of school. You think of your first day on the job or your first day, your first date, right? Drop a heart in the chat if you remember your first day of school, one of your first days of school, if you were one of them people that were laying out your outfit the night before. We was trying to get flyer than been before. We had the fresh fit, couldn't wait to, go make new friends, meet new people. Think about your first day on the job. You think about promotions and building relationships, letting folks know that you deserve this opportunity, or even the first date. You got the butterflies. You want to show your best self to this person. But what happens as time goes on? After that first day of school, we stop paying attention. Our heads on the desk. We skipping classes. That's if we going to school at all. After that first day on the job, what happens? You become one of them people that wait the clock out. You watching the clock 24/7. Might be complaining, "Oh, I hate my job." After that first date, more often than not, those butterflies fly away. And what if, though? What if we can embody that day one energy? What if we could show up as our best selves at every moment of every day? That's what day one, not day two is about. And so to end that off, I would like to share a very brief video clip about a training that we have coming up. And then I'll drop in the chat a way that folks can be part of it if they're interested.
We gotta come to a common ground because the audience don't know what we be thinking. Like they think we wild. Whole time we really be chilling.
I think there's a disconnect between the older generation and the younger generation because the older generation be hating.
It's a balance of taking responsibility for how we have the world to be right now as an adult and offering to the children the space to help evolve what the future is going to look like.
It was really nice to be here with all these other brilliant youth, teaching folks about what it means to engage with us and other, folks in our community meaningfully.
This whole training was for us to better understand who we are as attorneys and social workers, but also to understand our clients and where our clients are coming from. It's putting us in that seat that they're in, getting them to be comfortable with us, so we're now being comfortable with one another and trusting one another.
I enjoyed yesterday so much. I thought it was so informative. It was interactive. I really enjoyed the youth panel, just giving it to us real. It lived up to its authentication, youth-led work, and I learned a lot.
We're all collectively here with the intention to create better futures for young people.
I think the audience was really engaged into the inner child activity. I think it really hit when we told them, like, hey, you can't advocate for you unless you advocate for your inner child.
And everybody say with me, colleagues, not clients.
Hearing young people talk about how important it is to build authentic intergenerational relationship, and to hear them just express themselves so freely, because usually at these types of events we're not able to just share our experiences in the ways that we usually talk. We have to conform to what is quote unquote professional.
They know they are the masters of their own universe. They know what is important. We have been trained to make those decisions for them. And now we want to change the way we do that and ask youth to lead us in how to best represent them.
A foster
foster mom. Since there was a little boy inside of me playing with matches near his forehead. You are now listening to the stories of a foster child.
You can't change the things and transform the paradigm that we need to transform in 2 days. So it's very important that we take these lessons, these learnings, experiences with us and create that culture within our teams, within our tribes, within our communities to keep these conversations going. It can't just be a one and done type of thing. This is not the type of training where, we have these conversations like at a regular conference and then you leave. We have to keep continuing to commit to build a brighter future for young people.
I hear laughter. I believe in hope. I hear children, our future. You love fiercely.
All right, we're going to drop a link as we transition to the Q&A. We're going to drop a link to register for folks that are interested in being part of that in-person authentic youth engagement training next month. And then also, Rachel, you want to share the slide that has the QR code where folks can scan?
Yes, indeed. One moment. Okay, here we go. Yeah. And then, yes, we're about to transition into the Q&A. So if folks would like to drop questions about anything that they heard here today, if you have questions for one of the individual presenters, please feel free to drop those in the chat. And then, other questions? Well, I can't see the chat. So if anyone can give me like a thumbs up or something up there. Don't be shy. Or if you're shy, that's okay too. That's why we have the chat, everybody. You don't have to say the question.
Well, I see one question that is asking, where will the training be where will the training be held? Excuse me. So we have 2 office spaces. One is in North Philadelphia, the other one is in Delaware County in Chester. So next month's training is probably going to be at the office in Chester, in Delaware County, about 15 minutes from the airport. There's a comment. I'm excited to hear you're interested from Jody Dodd. I'm excited to hear you're interested in working with the Philadelphia DA's office, Restorative Justice. That's me. Let's please connect. That's great. There's a few foundations in here in addition to funding. Are there other ways to support? That is a good question. We're in the community regularly on top of doing the trainings. That's important, but we're also like we host community cleanups. We got one coming up at the end of the month as well. We can email folks information about that. But I think really it's about not only just supporting us, but supporting grassroots organizations and supporting different types of leaders in this time. Because when we invest in leaders that maybe don't have a PhD or don't have backgrounds in 10 or 20 years of experience working with different organizations, right? When we invest in different type of leaders, we're investing in this mission as a whole and the movement as a whole. So just building authentic relationships with the people closest to the issues and organizing right where you're at, I think is a big way. And then also spreading the word as well. If anybody else has any answer to that, please share.
Yeah, I in alignment with what you just named, Andre, feel like showing up is one of the best ways that you can support. Love it if you put your dollars down, but also just showing up, being present, being in community with folks. So I feel like Yeah, I feel like it means a lot when you're there for community cleanup or there in conversation, there through maybe like conflict. You being present is one of the best ways to show folks that you are supportive of their well-being, of their growth, and that you're invested in your own too.
Yeah, I see another question from Jenny Rockwell. Andre, can you talk more about relationships with funders, how they can authentically support, how you envision funding power being given back to the community? That is a great question, Jenny. I really want to just big up Stoneleigh real quick. Stoneleigh Foundation has been great with their just overall support, not just supporting us financially, but doing opportunity, connecting us to opportunities like this, putting us on a stage, connecting us to other funders, and also allowing us to dictate the relationship with the funds, right? I think that is important. They realize that we're on the ground doing the work. And so it's not a million, reports, data entries. There's not, a bunch of red tape and hoops to jump through. And Mark makes it so easy. We go out, get coffee, talk about the work, and he does his job behind the scenes to make us, sound good. So I think it's important that you really understand what is happening here, the importance of that, and also when it comes to how we can envision funding power being given back to the community. We gotta get rid of as much red tape, shall I say, red tape as we possibly can that make it difficult for the people closest to the issues to, get funding. The nonprofit industrial complex is real, and the way this is situated is folks that can afford a grant writer, or folks that can afford, the research, the best practice research, that those are the people that are, getting the funds a lot of the times. And unfortunately, those are also the individuals that are far removed from the community. So the intention might be good, the intention might be pure, but the impact becomes diluted. So I think it's, definitely, pay it forward, right? But also sit down and allow like the grant process, the funding process to be informed by the folks actually doing the work, by the young people actually being impacted. There's so many organizations and initiatives that are supposed to be for young people. I really would love to hear how young people are being impacted in these spaces, right? So yeah, that just comes to mind right there. And then also last thing that I'm gonna say, because this is a pet peeve of mine when it comes to funders, project grants, project grants. Blessing and a curse. It's great for folks that are trying to, get up off, pilot something, but we need real support. Community needs sustainable support, especially now when there's so much uncertainty, when there's so much up against us in the funding world. We need to know that, there's the buy-in, holistically for 3+ years. A project here, a project there. What it actually does is distracts from the work a lot of the times, because we're trying to start so many new things when it's like we can't even focus on what we do great, because we got to do this and do that. Yeah. Do you use data to inform your programming or to qualify
Day,
reach?
1 second. My fault. We had a question in the chat, in the Q&A. They asked how many youth come to your organization have housing issues, and they would like to help. They are the co-chair of the Housing with Philadelphia Reentry Coalition. They had a question asking how many youth members come to your organization have housing issues.
I would say the majority, unfortunately. Housing with young people right now is so difficult to come by, especially young people that are like re-entering society. And so we should definitely connect, because that's a big need right there, and that's a great resource to have. Thank you. Nicole Ward asks, do you have any advice on youth engagement? There are so many great foundations like your own, but sometimes getting to the kids to buy in, show up, and follow through is a struggle. I know it's different for each person and meeting where they are, but any advice? Rahsaan, you want to answer that?
Yes, I do. Do you have any advice on youth engagement? I feel like the younger you are, the more that young people gravitate towards you, if that makes sense. It's not necessarily about buying in. It's about building a bond. It's about building a relationship. It's about creating a circle to make young people feel that their vulnerability is not a sensitive thing or it's like a weak thing, but more so looking at our vulnerability as a way to power build. Where we lack, how can we be better? And not just that, but through this whole algorithm, it starts to create a structure where everything is easier to communicate. It's not a hassle talking to a young person about holding themselves accountable because they're so used to it. Like in our circles, this is the type of stuff that we implement. We make it towards the point that everything is balanced, but at the same time, we go off a structure, but we're understanding more and more that the more that you allow young people to be vulnerable, or not even just young people, because I notice it in older people too, but the more you allow people to be vulnerable, it's the more that they become optimistic, the more open-minded that they become to actually understand certain things. So it's not necessarily about just getting them to buy in, but it's actually letting them know I'm here with you. My feet is gonna land. I could be up here and you could be right here. It's no, I'm up here and you down here. It's no higher anarchy. We all on the same playing field. We all on the same level of playing, just period in general, to create that bond. So it's not like the younger children look, or the younger kids look up to us as if we were, it's more so creating that friction to say you could do the same thing I'm doing right now. Do you believe you can do it? Society makes us believe that we can't do it, or it takes us and it enables us from being able to actually get these things done at a younger age. So even I just use myself as an example. When I talk to young people and I communicate and articulate myself the way I do, I'm able to open a new door with them because they're seeing a young person actually doing it. But I'll leave that at there. I don't want to take up too much time.
I will also just add in really quickly, don't wait until the program is created. Don't wait until you don't tell them what to do, give them a chance to help build it out. Youth leadership is about having that involvement, having that buy-in at every stage of the process. A lot of the times we will get together and say, oh, we're going to do this for them. They need this. We're going to do this. And then, we wait for them to just come and, these are our ideas. So we have the saying, it's not the idea of authority, it's the authority of ideas. Bring in young people and pay them too. Don't just, make sure you pay them nicely for their time, but bring them in and have them involved in the creative process, put them in real leadership roles and invest in that way. All right, maybe time for one more question. Great. David says, to that point, how/where do you recruit young people to participate in your programs?
I can speak to that. Okay. So there's a combination of, going to the like different events, and connecting with young people and their families, surveys. We did food drives. Even during our events, like we collect contact information, we survey people almost at every event. So yeah, it's a combination of events, being in community, data, and really like connecting with young people and their families. And then also, we're artists as well. So these are like different strategies and different tactics to be able to be in contact with family members and to have like direct contact with the young people as well.
All right, thank y'all for some great questions. I just want to really up real quick. Shout out what Tanita says. She says as seasoned, and she put seasoned quotation marks, as seasoned organizers, it's crucial not to just jump in and try to save young people, but to invest time to listen to them first. I'm grateful for the opportunity. Great presentation. Thank you. Thank y'all for joining us. I'm gonna pass it to Rachel to close us out.
Again, like Andre said, thank you to everyone for being here. Thank you to Stoneleigh for having us. I'm gonna make the closing so quick. We're gonna nip in the bud, everybody. But yes, as we come to a close, I want to thank each of you again, not just for your presence, but for your willingness to witness, reflect, and be moved. Today, we didn't just talk about leadership. We saw it, we heard it, we felt it. We were reminded that leadership is not a position, it is a practice. And that narrative is not neutral, it is power. And that when young people reclaim their voices, they don't just tell new stories, they create new futures. So I'll leave you with this. If you're holding power, make sure you're also making room. If you're telling stories, make sure they're rooted in truth and dignity. And if you're building systems, make sure young people are not just at the table, but helping to design the blueprint. Because the future we need is already being imagined by those who have survived the impossible and are still dreaming. So let's listen to them, let's invest in them, and let's follow their lead from day one. I'm passing it to Mark.
Thank you, Rachel. I'll try to make it quick as well, but I just have so many wonderful things to say about you all. So I will try to keep it short, I promise. Andre, thank you for bringing us all here together today. You're the reason why we're here. Rachel, thank you for being an excellent organizer and moderator for this event. You've made it so easy to follow along and learn more about the work that everyone's doing. Incite, Rahsaan, Westley, thank you all for taking the time today to share with us all the important work that you're doing at Day One, at Day Two. It is such an honor to work with you all. In fact, I'd be hard pressed, honestly, to think of a better example of an organization that is truly empowering young people, young adults, empowering their communities and giving them the tools, the knowledge, and the language to really advocate for themselves. And so if you are interested in learning more about how that works, how they partner with young people, we say youth engagement, but really thinking of them as partners. If you have any interest in learning about how that works, I cannot recommend enough their series of trainings, particularly the youth engagement training they're doing next month. Thank you all to our audience members for coming out today to check us out. We really appreciate it. Both for the folks in our audience, for the folks in our audience, we'll be sending around an email either later this week or early next. Includes a recording of this webinar. It'll include all of those links to the documentaries, to the engagement training, to other things, other kind of resources you've seen here today. For folks who are watching this as a recording, did not receive that email, reach out to us, right? So DayOneNotDayTwo is a website. You can find me at StoneleightFoundation.com. You can find them at DayOneNotDayTwo.org. No, their.com. I'm .org. Let me get that right. And right, even though you can learn a lot from those resources, from those trainings, if you'd like to learn more, if you'd like to support them, feel free to reach out directly. We'll include some of that contact information in that email as well. So thank you all again. Please take care.